This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of the sequel trilogy. And with it, if you really enjoy those sequels and you can't take any criticism, I would recommend just stop watching now because although I'm fine with Force Awakens, definitely have a lot of problems with Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And I know there's some people who just can't accept other people's opinions online, and that's run really well through this. So if you just love the sequels and can't hear anyone speaking negatively about them, please just stop watching the video. And if you do watch it, please don't go attacking me or other people in the comments. So let's just go straight into this, starting off with The Force Awakens. And this is the best film in the trilogy. And yeah, really past that. It's a fine film. It has a lot of similarities to A New Hope and really mirrors that film a lot. But with it, it still was interesting enough. It does have a few moments that I don't love overall, but still, this film is overall pretty good. And just looking at everything to happen in The Force Awakens, you have some pretty strong moments, although most of them are nostalgic. Like you have the great Chewie We're Home scene, and you get just so many other ones where you have nice, fun moments between characters. But with it, there's also a lot of problems with this film. As I mentioned, it's really similar in terms of structure to A New Hope, with basically the only thing that happens that's a little different is there is a lightsaber duel at the end, and with it, this lightsaber duel is just one that I never could understand why Rey is able to win it, and with it, I don't care that Ben Solo was injured. The first thing is the dark side feeds off of pain, and it could both be internal or external from others. And with it, I've been reading a bunch of Star Wars books recently, including the Darth Bane trilogy, where there is a lot of examples of people being in excruciating pain who are Sith Lords or powerful dark side users, since Kylo Ren isn't technically a Sith Lord, that are able to use that pain to go and empower themselves. And the only time it doesn't work is if it is basically a near fatal wound, and the power of the dark side is only barely to keep him alive. But with this, the wound was not fatal, and with it, it just makes no sense to how he would ever lose because he's basically a black belt, and Rey is just some person who's got into like a few street fights, and the injuries in terms of a Dark Lord of the Sith or just a powerful dark side user, since he isn't really a Sith Lord, would be like if someone shot him with adrenaline from a gun. With it, yeah, it's gonna hurt a lot since it is still shot from like a gun, but that's going to empower him and make him be even more powerful and last longer in this fight. Because, yeah, it makes no sense for Rey to be able to win because a staff and a lightsaber are two completely different weapons. And with it, that's one of the main criticisms. The other is to not really look more into Finn as a character, and with him, they don't look too much at what it would be like for a former stormtrooper to go and try and make amends for what he's done, but also feel guilty about going and killing the people that he used to serve with, knowing how they've been brainwashed. With it, once he tosses the stormtrooper armor off, he's perfectly willing to go and kill any other stormtrooper, even though it's the death of a trooper that helps motivate him to go and leave the First Order. And yeah, with this, I think that it really makes no sense to not do anything with Finn being a stormtrooper besides a bunch of jokes about him being a janitor. And yeah, honestly, that was just such a bad inclusion to never take advantage of that. And with it, it didn't need to be some crazy thing. You could have just had the simple stuff like, for example, in Clone Wars Season 7 when Rex is forced to go and fight against his brothers. He doesn't want to do it, but he realizes that in this scenario, there's no way for them to get out alive. And even though Ahsoka wants to go and save everyone, she sadly isn't able to, and all the clones die in a crash. And with it, they go and still care for them and are still willing to bury them and treat them with respect, even though they did try to kill them, and they were just brainwashed to do it. But with this, Finn shows absolute no mercy when he goes and kills stormtroopers. And when I was playing something like the Skywalker Saga, I tried to avoid playing as Finn when fighting stormtroopers unless it was absolutely necessary because I wanted him to have that little bit of restraint. There may have been, just a few times where I may have accidentally switched to him and I wasn't thinking, but with it, I tried to be conscious when I was playing as Finn because I feel like that should have been an important part of his character, and there was just a little thing I could have tossed in on it. And yeah, looking at really everything else, there's nothing much more to say. It's basically a clone of A New Hope. It's not as good as the film. It has stuff like you have the little droid with a map to Luke Skywalker instead of the Death Star plans. You have the Death Star 3.0 as the main threat, and they have to go and destroy it. You have a space battle with a trench run. You have the Mentor go and get killed off. Although it is a good scene, I don't think it's really, as impactful as Ben Kenobi's death, where he just goes and sacrifices himself, or they just go and sort of just kill Han out of nowhere, and they didn't necessarily have to do it. I feel like they were just trying to go and get rid of all the original trilogy characters basically once they were done with them. And another thing I didn't like is how they took the characters and reverted them back to who they were in A New Hope. I feel like Han Solo would not go and give up everything he had so he could go and basically be a smuggler again, even if the stuff with Ben did destroy him. I just feel like it just feels so cheap to go and take him back to being a smuggler, just so you could be like, hey, look, Han Solo's a smuggler, remember that? And it feels like everything he went through in the original trilogy was just wiped away. And with Leia, she's the only one who isn't really, reverted back to who she was, since she was always this great leader and cared much for the people of the galaxy. But her being separated from Han is it's pretty surprising and just something I feel like they completely, messed up. They just tried to make basically everyone into and bitter old versions of who they were in A New Hope, and with it, and I mean that by that I mean it's the start of A New Hope. I'll go into everything they did with Luke Skywalker when we get to The Last Jedi. But yeah, with this, I think that also a major problem with this film is how it fits into the trilogy because with it, although it had a lot of interesting mysteries and questions for us, the other films, specifically The Last Jedi, didn't feel like answering them, and with it, it just feels like they completely wasted their time just by raising the questions. Who are Rey's parents? Who is Snoke? As the main two ones, and with that, people spent years trying to figure it out until you have Ryan Johnson literally saying your Snoke theories suck and having the most anticlimactic answers to both of them. And with it, I think it's time to move into The Last Jedi and continue on to this topic right now. And looking at the first of the two, Rey Nobody, and there's a problem with this that is making Rey a nobody. If it was just under normal circumstances, and it's revealed maybe, in episode 7 or 8, without all the build up, just saying that she doesn't have anyone major that she's related to, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But the problem with it is they built up the hype for it. They built the entire mystery of who was Rey's parents, and they wanted us to, think about it for the years. And a big part about The Last Jedi's marketing is Rey trying to figure out her place in Star Wars, and with it, they're just building up so much hype and then doing what many hate that The Last Jedi did, including me, subverting expectations. And they did this just for the sake of subverting expectations. But that sometimes taking expectations and subverting them is good because it could go for a pretty big and crazy twist, like the fact that Vader is Luke's father, and with it, we didn't see that coming, and we are totally surprised by it. And the moment was just really crazy. But after that, we know they're going to reveal something, and instead of going and trying to make it big, they're just like, nah, that doesn't matter at all. She's nobody, and it doesn't matter who her parents were. And that is retconned again in Rise of Skywalker, which I'll go over when I get to that film. But yeah, that is completely ridiculous and crazy. But moving on to the other one, who is Snoke, and Ryan Johnson's answer to this is, who cares? He's some guy I'm gonna kill off. And with it, the decision to kill off Snoke is really dumb because Kylo Ren does not pose a threat. And with it, if Luke wasn't stupidly killed off for basically no reason at all in the movie, then Kylo Ren would stand absolutely no chance since Luke would completely overpower him. And with it, the Force Order would have been destroyed since Luke was fully capable of fighting and he completely outmatched Kylo Ren. And with it, you saw that even Rey outmatched him, being able to defeat him with the second time she ever picked up a lightsaber and the first time she ever ignited one. And yeah, the problem with this is that he just didn't pose a credible threat. Snoke did, and Kylo Ren was basically a joke. And with this, they also turned the rest of the First Order into jokes. They turned General Hux into a complete buffoon, and Captain Phasma was made into basically nothing, being taken out once again by Finn. And yeah, with this, they went and took a bunch of intimidating villains and made them all into jokes, dead, or dead jokes. And with it, they took out all credibility in their threat for the final film. And with it, I don't see how a reasonable person will be threatened by the First Order, since all the leaders are either complete idiots or are not powerful enough or easily manipulated enough to falling into some pretty basic traps. And with it, I understand why they had to bring Palpatine back, because Rian Johnson went and successfully destroyed each and every single villain in this film, so they would have no credible threats that posed really any challenge to the good guys, since they have all been easily defeated by stuff like a your mom joke, a pretty basic fight, and going up against and fighting a person who is completely out of their league and below them, that should have stood absolutely no chance against them. And with it, all of this is just made so much worse. The fact they don't have anyone credible. Snoke could have been a credible threat, but he was literally killed by a move that, with it, and combined with falling down a massive chute and being stuck in a pile of garbage for over a decade, Darth Maul was able to survive this, but Snoke wasn't able to survive being cut in half and not even falling down at all until way after he was dead, and his body collapsed just for a comedic gag. And yeah, with it, Last Jedi is just so infuriating, and I have only talked about just a few aspects. I haven't gone into the main plot of it and talked about Jake Skywalker. And talking about Jake Skywalker, who is this odd clone of Luke Skywalker, who was somehow transported into this universe, was just a complete betrayal of the character we saw in the original trilogy. He went back to not even who he was in A New Hope. He went back even farther than that. He turned into Uncle Owen. And with it, it was honestly just so disappointing to see him with it. And the basic middle finger they gave to us when he throws away his former and his father's former's lightsaber in a cheap gag, showing about how much respect Rian Johnson had for what came before. And with it, he cared completely nothing about helping others or helping his family. He went and did an act that is completely unthinkable for Luke Skywalker to do. He went and tried to murder his nephew over basically nothing, just having some bad thoughts in his head. And with it, he was convinced that he could go and turn Darth Vader, a person who was responsible for far more atrocities than his nephew ever was. And he went and was convinced and persevered to go and save him, and it worked. And he saw just a few bad things in his nephew's mind and thought, I'm gonna go and attempt to murder him, even though he stopped himself. That's something that Luke Skywalker would almost certainly never do, because he was able to go and believe in someone he barely knew. Although he was his father, the only experiences he had with him, if you only look at the movies, there are some other stuff is in the comics and stuff where Vader tries to kill himself, but every experience he had with his father before this, both before and after he knew, was Vader was trying to kill him and did some horrible things, murdering so many of his friends and nearly killing him on the Death Star, and then cutting off his hand in Empire Strikes Back and demanding that Luke joined him to go and overthrow the Emperor to rule together. And yeah, with this, if Luke was able to believe in one of the most evil men in the galaxy, someone who had only a small flicker of light left in them, he should have been able to see the giant patch of light left inside of Han Solo, something that was so obvious. Someone like Rey could have seen, and with it, the only reason they had this is to have Luke go into exile, and they could have found just so many other better reasons. And if you look at it, Luke abandoning the galaxy is basically what gave the First Order the chance to go and start seizing power, since it seems like Snoke was far too terrified to go up against Luke Skywalker, but saw his opportunity after Luke went and disappeared. So yeah, with this, literally, if Luke doesn't go and make this out of character decision, I'm sorry, not Luke, Jake goes and makes this decision completely out of character to who Luke Skywalker is, then suddenly all of the sequels do not happen. Kylo Ren is not created, since it's revealed in the comic that a lightning bolt went and destroyed Luke's Jedi Temple. That was probably caused by Palpatine, so Ben Solo is basically becomes Kylo Ren for a completely different reason, and yeah, with this I just can't really justify anything in this movie. We still haven't even gotten to the main plot, and I think I've been talking about this for maybe 10, 15 minutes. Just this movie specifically and the problems with it. And I still have not even reached the point in this where I want to go and talk about the plot of the movie, and have only talked about how they handled a few characters and twists. And just going into the last major problem just with characters, we have Holdo, who basically goes and causes a mutiny because of how bad of a leader she is. And I would rather have Jar Jar Binks or C3PO placed as a leader of battle instead of her. And assuming that Jar Jar is not Darth Jar Jar, they are both completely incompetent and would still do better than her, because I don't think she understands the basics of trust, and you can't just demand trust. It needs to be earned, and with someone who is able to cause the people to mutiny within a few hours is not a good leader. A good leader would not basically go and tell everyone, trust me, everything's handled, even though it seems like nothing is handled, and she isn't giving any hope, just saying, you need to, whatever, believe in me, even though she has given them no good reasons. And that's my main problem with her. She is just so arrogant and thinking that no one else could match up with her, and then they're saying that, oh, she's right, her plan was great, but she has no reason to really hide it besides her ego and being in a contest with Poe to show how she's superior and just try and teach him a lesson, even though that lesson could cost, and it did cost, the lives of most of the rest of the members of the Resistance. I thought she could have at least told them that they're going to go and sneak off to a base, since the only reason they couldn't is if there was a spy, and with it, one person you would know is not a spy is the guy who went and blew up one of the most valuable First Order ships, and with that, Poe is one of the few people who Leia trusted, and Holdo should have at least trusted enough to tell him that they have a solid plan, and although she can't tell him the specifics at least, she does have a way out of there for the rest of the Resistance to survive and fight on. And with that, you wouldn't have the entire pointless side quest to Canto Bight, and looking at that, that entire part of the movie and the part where they infiltrate the Star Destroyer could have been completely cut out, and you could have just had a spy inside the Resistance ship or some other simple explanation, and to tell them that they are launching the ships out, or maybe just have someone notice it, and suddenly you could cut out probably a solid quarter to maybe a third of the movie. And with that, I think it's completely inexcusable for it to have a major portion of the plot literally mean nothing besides being a lesson about how bad war profiteering is. And with that, that's really all the part of the movie has. And honestly, I just don't know what else to say about that part of the movie. Looking at the rest of it, it does have some cool scenes like the battle in the Praetorian Guards and Snoke's throne room. And stuff with the Battle of Crate's beginning is cool with the ski speeders and I think it's the ATM-6s. But with it, I also think it's just a really dumb decision for Rose to go and try and save Finn and say, I'm trying to save you from dying to save what I love, and that's literally what Finn was doing. That would have been like the perfect moment to send his character off, especially since all he does in Rise of Skywalker is yell Rey, and with it, they just go and ruin this moment with a really dumb scene. And yeah, honestly, with it, now going just to the final moments where Luke goes and just sacrifices himself for like no reason at all. When it's clear, based on Rise of Skywalker and stuff, he could have repaired his X-Wing and made it a crate. And with this, they could have found some way to have it work, because all Luke has to do is find a way to get his X-Wing working, fly to crate, attack Ben, and kill him, and then suddenly all the major advantages the First Order has is done. No one else knows about Palpatine yet, and if Palpatine shows up, Luke is able to train Rey, and with how powerful he would become just with a year to go and practice his training, he'll be able to stand up against Palpatine and easily defeat him, especially with Palpatine being in his weakened clone state. So, yeah, honestly, if you just look at it, it's just completely ridiculous that they basically just killed off Luke because he was going to be way too much of a threat to Kylo Ren, and he literally could have went and ended everything right there if he just went and decided to well, most likely the screenwriter decided to go and find a way for him to get off of Aktu and he could go and fight Kylo because he didn't need to have his X-Wing submerged. He could have had it, maybe parked off somewhere or something else because, with it, it just really makes no sense. And it was really a pointless sacrifice because he saved them like a few minutes, which they could have done by setting like explosives around like the entrance to the mine shafts and blowing them. So it would take them some time to get through and would have actually bought more time since they would have had to dig through it than Kylo Ren just going and trying to kill a fake Luke Skywalker. So yeah, I don't even know why Luke had to die there because it just feels completely pointless. Yeah, see, I really don't know. I went on at least a 20-minute rant now about this movie, and you can clearly tell I don't like the film. And with it, it's definitely my least favorite of all the Star Wars films. I just feel like it's such a dishonor to what came before. But yeah, I think I'm kind of done with this rant for now. And now let's move on to Rise of Skywalker, which I still do have a lot to say about that. But probably not as much as Last Jedi because I don't want this video to be nearly an hour long because I don't want to torture you that much about talking about these films. Although I did kind of warn you at the beginning if you couldn't take stuff like this, not to watch it, but even I wasn't expecting for it to be this long. I was expecting this video would be like 30 minutes at the longest. So yeah, moving on to Rise of Skywalker. As I said, I can fully understand why Palpatine was brought back in this. They had no credible villains. Snoke was dead and was taken out extremely easily. Kylo Ren was a complete joke in terms of power and has been shown to stand no chance against Rey. And finally, Hux was a complete joke, and Captain Phasma was easily dispatched twice. So they had no credible threat, and with it, I could totally understand why they had Palpatine in this, and had to find someone to be behind all of this because there was no way for Kylo Ren to serve as a serious threat. And with it, Kylo was seeking redemption, and I don't know if they should have done that. I feel like it would have been way more interesting for Kylo to go out as a villain. And honestly, it's not much it's like, terrible about Rise of Skywalker. It's just that it's disappointing, and with it, that's the main thing. It's not a terrible film, it just doesn't feel like as big as the end of the Skywalker saga should be. And there's also some pointless stuff in here that is just fully contradicted later in the movie that was just put in to have false tension. For example, the entire thing with both the fake deaths of Chewbacca and C-3PO's memory is completely undone when C-3PO has his memory restored, and it's revealed that Rey didn't actually kill Chewbacca. And even though I didn't want Chewbacca to be killed off, it felt extremely cheap for them to be doing this and give Rey no consequences to her actions. And the C-3PO memory thing, oh, that's understandable that Archie would have a backup. They did mention it. They try to make it feel like this is the most permanent thing ever, and that C-3PO is going to be truly gone, but we've already seen C-3PO go through a memory wipe once before, and it doesn't even feel as impactful with this because it honestly just doesn't, and we know C-3PO keeps the exact same personality right after and just, it goes back to just not knowing anyone's names until he's basically has his memory restored, and with that, I think it would have been a little more interesting if his memory is restored to that from the prequels, which could have been interesting, but yeah, I'm not really sure. So yeah, honestly, but there's other stuff that is completely wasted, like about half the movie they're searching for the Wayfinder, and with it, the entire quest is made completely meaningless when it's destroyed, and all they have to do is have Kylo and Rey confront each other, and she could have got the one Wayfinder from him, and then suddenly an entire major part of this movie, around half of the movie, would be completely unnecessary, and that's a problem with this. It just feels like so much time is being wasted, and it's just trying to contradict The Last Jedi, which I don't fully mind, but yeah, this film feels like it should have been two parts, and there's also Palpatine's extremely stupid decision to go and announce his surprise attack before he's ready because all he has to do is wait basically like 48 hours, I think, and he'll have his Star Destroyers to every known system. And with this, he fully wins. So, yeah, that is a pretty big flaw in the plan, and I honestly just don't know what to say. It's just such a dumb decision. And with it, it just doesn't feel like the Palpatine we got to know and love in the prequels. Someone who is so patient and so smart with how he planned everything out. He was able to convince the Republic to turn into an empire and make him the dictator and ruler of it. And with this, I don't know if it's like some disease from the cloning or some problem with his mind, but he just makes these extremely poor decisions that I don't think most people would make and announce your basically victory strategy before it's been even ready to execute. And yeah, with that, it was pretty dumb, and also just the fact that they have them all parked in low orbit, and I don't really know what I think it's like 16 hours or something. I don't remember the time limit set on these because there's both that and the Last Jedi's time limit, and I honestly don't remember between the two. But yeah, with it, it's just kind of a dumb moment, and look at everything else. Honestly, I think that it's just really odd that they went and, you know, didn't do any of this. There is just so many odd things, and just like in some of those decisions, like Ray Palpatine, honestly, I don't really care they did that. But I do not like the fact that they had her change her last name to Skywalker because it's basically doing what Kylo Ren said to do because he said to let the past die and kill it if you have to. That's the only way you have to become the way who you're meant to be, I think. And with that, Rey literally does that by giving up the last name Palpatine and taking on the Skywalker name, and it is completely unnecessary. And she could try to either give redemption to the Palpatine name or go and take on her own name, but she really doesn't have to, and it feels completely unnecessary. And so many other things here just feel like that, and I just don't know what you could do to go and justify it sometimes. But yeah, honestly, just looking at it, so there's nothing, that's truly amazing here. And there's nothing that's really, completely terrible. Just some things that are something disappointing. Some things are pretty bad. Let's take it back. There's some things that are really bad and can be considered terrible. But with it, it just feels like you're just questioning a lot of decisions, and there's so much that could have been done better. It's more disappointing as an end than anything. And that's the reason I put Last Jedi below this, because Last Jedi is sort of an insult to everything, at least in my opinion. Well, this is just a disappointment. It's something that could have been so great, so well done, and so well executed, and it just wasn't. Yeah, honestly, I think that's really all I have to say about Rise of Skywalker. I don't think there's much more I can say, but yeah, let's move on to the trilogy as a whole. This trilogy is a really big mess. It completely contradicts itself in so many ways, and with it, it seems to be they're just completely obsessed with the directors just going in a contest to see whose story is more important to tell and what they want instead of trying to make a story together. There's just so many problems with this, and I really wish that they did a better job going and just writing it. It was pretty disappointing, but yeah, honestly, I'd still recommend if you like Star Wars to at least check it out so I could have your own opinions, because people do like it. I just personally don't like it, and I just can't accept some of the things that happen in it. I really hate how they just go and, in two of the films, waste so much time, and it's just so ridiculous to me. But yeah, honestly, I want to know what you think about these films. Let me know in the comments. I'll see you all in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.